Someone who's had an impressive run of commercial hits during his career is Adam Sandler. Even though many of his films are hardly what you would call critically acclaimed, he has become a favorite with audiences. Sandler's unexpected box office success started with Billy Madison and continued with Happy Gilmore, The Wedding Singer, The Waterboy, and Big Daddy. Thanks to his rise in popularity, he got the chance to start his own production company, Happy Madison Productions, signing a deal with both Revolution Studios and Sony Pictures to develop films for them. Sandler would not only make films for himself, but also his friends. In fact, the company's first movie was neither a Sandler vehicle nor a Sony Revolution release. That was Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo, released by Touchstone Pictures and starring Rob Schneider. This was also the first film to headline Schneider after years of supporting or bit roles in other films, and the first one he received a writing credit on. It was an example of Sandler using his newfound success to give an opportunity to one of his buddies. Despite being destroyed by critics for its raunchy and juvenile humor, Deuce Bigalow was a box office hit with the young audiences Happy Madison hoped to target with its films. Interestingly, the studio's first movie starring Sandler was a huge flop. Playing the son of Satan, Little Nicky lost a lot of money for New Line Cinema and briefly put Sandler's star power into question. The following year's films, Joe Dirt starring David Spade and The Animal with Rob Schneider, similarly did not excite potential viewers to buy a ticket to them. However, Adam Sandler would come roaring back with Mr. Deeds, which was a big hit. Even though it got terrible reviews, the Dana Carvey vehicle, The Master of Disguise, performed okay that same summer. Less successful was Happy Madison's first foray into animation with 8 Crazy Nights. The film was not well received, which should not have been too surprising at this point. However, even Sandler's usual admirers did not turn up for it. Part of it might have been them turning their noses up at a cartoon, but I think the main reason is because while previous Sandler comedies positioned his character as the hero of the story the audience is meant to root for, 8 Crazy Nights had him voice a purposely unlikable character who were meant to dislike for his actions, and I get the feeling that turned people off. It would not take long for Adam Sandler to score his next hit, though, with Anger Management. This was also when his comedies start to receive inflated budgets. Obviously, Sandler and Jack Nicholson's services did not come cheap, but $75 million is still a surprising amount to spend on a simple comedy. Happy Madison's non-Sandler comedies did have more reasonable budgets, though, with films like Dickie Roberts' former child star, Grandma's Boy, The Benchwarmers, and the Deuce Bigalow sequel costing anywhere from $5 to $30 million. However, it was often Sandler's face that would sell the most tickets, so it makes sense why Sony and other distributors did not balk too much at his film's price tags. For now, anyway. 50 First Dates, The Longest Yard, Click, I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, and You Don't Mess with Zohan all performed nicely for Sandler. Happy Madison even produced a family comedy starring Sandler for Disney titled Bedtime Stories, and that did solid numbers during its Christmas 2008 release. There was also the Anna Faris comedy The House Bunny, another hit, and Paul Blart Mall Cop starring Kevin James, which had impressive staying power in the early months of 2009. Happy Madison has briefly tried to branch out, albeit with limited success. A label named Madison 23 Productions was started for more serious fare. One of the films produced on this label was Reign Over Me, starring Sandler as a man dealing with tragedy. Despite getting some of the better reviews for Happy Madison production, with particular praise towards Adam Sandler's performance, it did not perform well at the box office. Judd Apatow's Funny People had higher prospects, considering Apatow's recent successes. However, the film saw its budget balloon to $75 million, far greater than Apatow's other films, and general audiences did not think much of the movie, and it disappointed commercially. Thus, that was the end of Madison 23. Adam Sandler also started Scary Madison, a label for horror movies. It made The Shortcut, co-written by his brother Scott, a film that got extremely minimal distribution and little to no fanfare in its release. So Happy Madison went back to making exclusively comedies from then on. Doing a little better was their foray into television. The sitcom Rules of Engagement ran for 7 seasons on CBS, and Happy Madison is also producer on the hit ABC show The Goldbergs, which is currently in its 10th and final season. Less successful were shows like Breakin' In on Fox and Imaginary Mary on ABC. Back on the big screen, the 2 Grown Ups movies were big successes for Adam Sandler and his friends. Just Go of It was another movie that did very well. However, it was also around this time that the relationship between Sony Pictures and Happy Madison started to sour. Part of this came from the budgets his comedies accumulated. They likely looked at how other comedy producers like Judd Apatow and Seth Rogen were making films for about half the cost of Sandler's movies and wondered why they had to cost so much. For example, Rogen's This Is the End had an ensemble cast of recognizable names and plenty of special effects, and reportedly had a budget of about $30 million. Grown Ups 2, released the same summer, cost $80 million to make. Something does not add up. The Sony executives also did not have much enthusiasm for the comedies Sandler was choosing to make. According to Ben Fritz in his book The Big Picture, The Fight for the Future of Movies, the higher-ups at Sony thought Jack and Jill was a terrible idea for a movie and only made it because of the number of hits Sandler had produced for the studio. That film underperformed, and doing even worse was That's My Boy, which was a huge failure. His comedy Blended then wound up being released by Warner Brothers instead. Sony also passed on his western comedy The Ridiculous Six, which was briefly picked up by Warner for a time. Interestingly enough, even though Sandler has an executive producer credit on the first two Hotel Transylvania movies, those were not Happy Madison productions. Sony did have a lot of confidence in the video game-inspired movie Pixels. It had an easily sellable premise, used a variety of well-known video game characters and cameos similar to another successful movie, Wreck-It Ralph, and was directed by Chris Columbus, who knows a thing or two about making successful crowd pleasers. Even though the movie was profitable, it did not come close to the numbers Sony was hoping for. Several months before the release of Pixels, Happy Madison had already signed a deal with Netflix to produce 4 movies for them. Sandler's previous films supposedly got high views on their streaming service, so it makes sense why Netflix would want to partner with him. Pixels would end up the last Happy Madison production released by Sony. Sandler would still voice Dracula in Hotel Transylvania 3, but he curiously did not come back for Hotel Transylvania 4. The Ridiculous Six was released on Netflix in December 2015, and was a huge hit on the service, despite Sandler getting some of the worst reviews of his career. That 4-movie deal was then extended, and now Happy Madison appears to be working exclusively with Netflix for the foreseeable future. Sandler starred in most of them, including The Do-Over, Sandy Wexler, Murder Mystery, and Hubie Halloween. However, his friends would also get movies under this new partnership. David Spade starred in Father of the Year and The Wrong Missy, while Kevin James stars in the sports comedy Home Team. Curiously, 2021 became the first ever year without a single Happy Madison movie being released. Considering how tirelessly Sandler's worked the past few decades as an actor, writer, or producer, he did deserve a short break. However, the studio was also busy working on its first drama since Funny People, the basketball film Hustle. The movie was critically acclaimed and even got Sandler his first Screen Actors Guild Award nomination. Happy Madison has several films coming up, all on Netflix, and I'm actually interested in quite a few of these. Murder Mystery 2 will be streaming next week. There's also You Are So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah, about the wacky hijinks that ensue at a girl's bat mitzvah celebration. Happy Madison will return to animation for the first time since 8 Crazy Nights with Leo, which has Sandler voicing a lizard who escapes from a classroom to radium. Meanwhile, The Outlaws stars Adam Devine and Pierce Brosnan in a comedy of mistaken identity. Even though Adam Sandler's production company is no longer making films for the big screen at the moment, it's nice they've continued to maintain an audience on Netflix. And the string of hits Happy Madison previously made for Sony and other theatrical distributors was certainly impressive. Critics may understandably not be fond of several of these movies, but they clearly made an impression on viewers, and Adam Sandler deserves to be proud of making so many people laugh as both an actor and a prolific producer. See you next time.